that's our cue. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pavlos Ευθυμίου. I'm a partner of Fortune Greece. I have the pleasure and privilege of chairing a very interesting discussion on leading innovation, fueling growth, and boosting investments with Dr. Kavita Patel, CEO of Roche in Hellas and Cyprus, and Dr. Orestes Omran, head of country group of DLA Piper, heading the firm's practice in Greece and Cyprus. Dr. Patel, I believe this is your first non-industry panel in Greece. Welcome. You came here in August. May it be a great term in Roche in Greece. I'm very good personally for you as well. Greece, I believe, is welcoming.
Very much so, yes.
Orestes, you're a known panelist on Fortune events.
I am indeed.
Much known to these discussions, but the angle today is interesting and different.
Sure.
I'll start with you, Kavita.
Sure.
You are heading a colossus of pharma. I believe you're the second in revenue. Since 1896, you have been outperforming in innovation and growth in your sector. Headquartered in Basel in Switzerland, where you served for almost 2 decades in different positions, also in the United States and so forth. But of course, this is the point of reference. And now you're in Greece. And I want us to hear a little bit more on Roche's footprint in Greece and the bridge with innovation.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. And first, thank you for Fortune for organizing this great event. I have had the great privilege of being in Greece now for about 3 months, and Roche Hellas has been here for since 1978. So we have been here for quite some time, and since that time, we are committed to preserving health, to stopping disease, and curing disease. I think it is really important that we focus on life-changing medicines. And we have about 30 products in the market today. And just in 2023, we have helped 11,000 patients. So it's a remarkable presence here in terms of not only our products, but also we're committed to research. So we have a strong presence in one of the leading pharma companies as it relates to clinical research here in Greece, with over 50 clinical trials in 150 centers, and also very much have a great passion of thinking about what we can do to shape the healthcare system that we are in, and that is through public and private partnerships, which I hope we can speak about more later today.
Kavita, I think that by the numbers, as we say, you have over 100,000 people globally as Roche, and in Greece you have over 100, but I don't recall the exact number. Can you give us those numbers, like the financial footprint and the manpower on the ground, before I pass to Orestes?
Definitely. So here in Greece, we not only have the pharmaceutical division, we also have the diagnostic division. So we have Roche Pharmaceuticals as well as Roche Diagnostics that make up over 200 employees here in Greece.
That's brilliant. Orestes, I'm passing to you, and I'm taking it a step back. Why is innovation important? How can we foster it? How can we boost it? What is the added value of innovation?
Thank you, Pablo. I think, first of all, I'm not the first to actually tell you that there is a sort of very close correlation between economy and growth and innovation per se. There are lots of empirical studies around that, and I do like a lot what a former Nobelist, Paul Romer, who's an economist, said at some point, that he's a supporter of the sort of called endogenous economic theory, which pretty much says that the economy can really turn itself into a huge innovation machine, which actually promotes all these intrinsic and internal reasons why economy should be promoting innovation. So other than the economic side of it, which we can speak about that for ages, I think you should also look at the socio-political part of that. And indicatively, I was reading the other day, and I think that's something very interesting. There was that sort of commission hearings. There is a new department at the European Commission now, which is supposed to deal with exactly the same thing: innovation, growth, venture capital, etc., etc. So it was the Bulgarian nominee for the commission that was asked a very specific question: are you going to allocate funds to Israeli companies? That's a very political question. Obviously, Israeli companies can be very innovative. Nevertheless, you can see that the actual factors that we are looking at are not only economic, they are also political. And she had a very, very difficult time to respond to that question, to be honest. So all this to say that, of course, there is that sort of, interplay. And another good example is what the World Intellectual Property Organization is saying. If you look at the 5 first countries right now in innovation in the world, it's the US, the UK, Switzerland, Sweden. You see that all these jurisdictions, all these countries basically are the wealthiest countries in the world. So there is a correlation between, promotion of innovation and economic growth per se, and that's what we should strive. We should see more in that index. Greece, by the way, is number 40 or something. We should see more economies, more other than the richest economies of the world, getting up. That's why we need to be promoting innovation, etc. And maybe a last point that I was thinking about the other day: social mobility. Social mobility also plays a role. There was that UK Commission on Social Mobility that makes a very interesting distinction based on innovation, actually, and that distinction tells us the following. The Western world is divided into two kinds of economies. The first kind of economy is the cutthroat economy. The US is a cutthroat economy because you have lots of innovation, but basically you have less protectionism by the country. So there is that free flow, lots of antagonism, lots of competition in the market, but still innovation is promoted through that cutthroat approach. On the other hand, you've got the cattle economy, sort of, which is basically Central and Western Europe. And there you've got less innovation, but more protectionism to the certain economic interests and stakeholders. So all this to say that you need to have a holistic approach, not only from an economical perspective, but also from a socio-political one.
All right. So I would add to that I guess innovation is what makes progress happen. And in many ways, it has the highest multiplier when it succeeds. And with that thought, Kavita, I'm coming to you because the pharma industry diachronically has played a key role in that. And if you have a comment on Orestes and then a little bit more on the pharma lens with your vision of Roche.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that health is something in which there shouldn't be a trade-off decision as it comes to health. Right? Health is something that we all need. And we need to have an environment that values innovation in health. It not only values it, but also provides incentives to provide additional investments in health here in Europe as well as here in Greece. And I think that, as you think about the challenges we face around the world with an aging population or increased prevalence in non-communicable diseases, health many times is seen as a cost. But should we see it as a cost? We should truly see it as an investment because we know that a study that was done in 2017 across Europe and UK, when countries invested in medical health innovation, what you see is an increase in productivity gains of 27 billion euros. That is phenomenal. And we think about 27 billion.
Wow.
So when we think about productivity, what does that mean? Productivity means that our people are healthier, our people are going back to work, caregivers are going back to work and being productive members of society. So it can boost significant economic growth for a country. And pharmaceutical companies, to that matter, not only provide these life-changing medicines that have a significant impact on productivity, they also invest in research and development. Roche is a leading company as it relates to healthcare research and development around the world. And we're committed to doing that here in Greece, as I just mentioned, in terms of clinical trial research. And we know that when you invest in clinical trials, it creates more jobs, more skilled jobs, and in turn increases the economic growth of a country. So this is just one example of what pharmaceuticals are able to do, in addition to public-private partnerships, as well as investments in shaping and changing our healthcare system so that we change the mindset is health is not a cost, but it truly is an investment.
Bridging, Kavita, perhaps round 1 and 2 of our ping pong here, I think that this kind of sheds light perhaps in the way that having mastered technologies, having begun capitalizing data and AI, it's not by chance that longevity now becomes perhaps the number 1 priority for all the big money in the world. And pharma will be in the epicenter of that. Let's return to it, perhaps on the third round. And Orestes, may I pass to you about describing these ecosystems that can attract investments across different economic sectors, of course, including pharma, and I did give a pass there, and the structural and, let's say, ideational or ideological, if you will, mindset that we must carry to create and foster such an ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. From the investor's perspective, obviously, That's not rocket science. What you need is very clear, right? In that ecosystems, you need tax breaks, you need a healthy banking system, you need funding for research and development. All these things that everybody speaks about, they are not a given for any reason, but we want it or not, this is where it all starts and where it all ends. So you need those economic incentives when we are looking at investing in those ecosystems. That's one thing. Nevertheless, we've seen that historically, and actually that's a current trend as well, those incentives are not necessarily the only thing that plays a role. You've got, obviously, political risk, and a good example, for example, Venezuela, the country with the largest oil reserves in the world. You've seen the Venezuelan economy, it's not doing well at all for many years now. Why? Because there is lots of political risk, there is lots of political instability. To the contrary, what you see in Greece right now happening in the past years, you see lots of growth that interrelates with the sort of called political stability that the current government has provided. So that's very, very important. At the same time, it's also the quality of the political institutions. You have the why nations fail. That's a very sort of literally very like a couple of years ago there was a Nobel Award for that particular book because it says a very specific thing.
Acemoglu, right?
Acemoglu, correct, and Robinson. They are basically saying one very specific thing. They're saying that the economy depends on the quality of institutions, and that's something that the wider public might not be very interested in understanding per se. But in my humble opinion, this is where it all gets at. Quality of political institutions, people feeling those sort of trust to the political institutions.
I can't help but comment that this is quite timely with the elections in the United States. That
it is.
When we had the first round of anxiety, institutions were there to help, and the stability
Absolutely.
and institutions come together. And I think that's a great point also for Greece, where we have a good political stability, but when it comes to institutions, the challenges remain, right?
There are challenges. There will always be challenges, but I think the US elections really proved what exactly you're saying. This quality and depth of the democratic institutions, despite those sort of, hardcore debate between the Republicans and the Democrats, it's obvious that the American democracy held very well despite that sort of very heated debate. So that's also important. It's also, and to round this up, it's also how people promote investment. That's very, very important, how people think about investment. And then again, Greece might be a good example. You see now people understanding that for the economy to grow, for them to have a more prosperous life, they need to be more welcoming to investments. Should those be from multinationals or from like smaller, local, medium-sized sort of international companies? You need to be welcoming. Lots of businesses are people-driven businesses. And if the people are not welcoming to that sort of investment, to a foreigner coming in, that's going to be problematic in the short run.
So codifying, you need the right incentives, tax and otherwise. That immediately brought to my mind the idea of Britain and how Britain had to catalyze innovation by giving very decisive tax breaks for those investing in innovation when it comes to their tax statement. So effectively all that, if it didn't go well, it was a much smoother loss of capital than otherwise. So I think this is a great point, Orestes, and I think it helps a lot for the Greek case where we need to attract investments in the near future and create such an ecosystem. So while that were a big point, I think that it has a lot of relevance to Greece. Kavita, I'm turning to you, and I'm introducing you now to the audience of the CEO initiative. This is the sixth forum. We traditionally address the 550 big businesses of Greece, 600 max, plus the medium-sized firms effectively, and the effective audience is 60,000 entrepreneurs and businesses that drive all the things we have been discussing in Greece over the past decades, and more so the innovative entrepreneurs, the 40 under 40, as we call them in Fortune, the new innovators of the ecosystem that break boundaries, disrupt, and bring change. Is there a call to action? Is there any kind of open bridge for synergies and cooperation that could come and bridge today through our discussion with that audience that I described today?
Yeah. No, definitely. And what I've heard throughout the day is the word we. No one can do this alone, right? We have to do this together. And I truly urge all of us to think about what are the collaborations we can have across industries with government as well as other stakeholders to really drive change. This is the time in Greece where we see growth, economic growth. How do we drive system change so that we create solutions for the betterment of the country, for the betterment of the people, that ultimately will thrive and continue to drive exponential and accelerate the growth that we're all looking for. So one example that I would share at Roche is that we had an opportunity to work on a project called Ηγεσία in collaboration with Ernst & Young as well as Ηγεσία, which is a cancer hospital, in which now we're delivering cancer treatments at home.
Right.
Patients, over 100 patients have now had the opportunity to be treated in the luxury of their home. So this is the kind of change we're talking about, where we make system changes in the betterment of people and the society as a whole.
And that sheds light also to the PPP angle you mentioned. So it's businesses and government working together smarter and cooperating more.
Exactly.
I'm turning a bit to Orestes, and I'm hoping we'll have time for a last remark on that. Kavita, thank you so much. Orestes, we spoke about innovation. Can we touch a little bit now on growth? Of course, investments will fuel innovation and growth. So in the end of the day, it's growth. This is the key element of sustainable growth that we need to attain as a Greek ecosystem, but also as a European Union. You are also heading the EU Greek practice, so I couldn't think of a better person to answer this hot ball. Yeah,
true. I mean, if you want to think about that, economic growth has a very strong, a very solid quantitative element, right? It's can't be all about the figures, but it practically isn't. Because even figures can be very subjective between, let's say, national and regional economies, for example. You've got the US economy driving with a 3% growth this year. Things are doing great, supposedly, but then you have 20% inflation in the state of Georgia. If you want to think about that, that's crazy. Same thing with Greece. We are driving really 2.5, 2.4% in terms of growth, but you see lots of regional economies in the country not doing very well, people closing up to poverty, excuse me. So that's a problem. So the numbers can be a problem per se. Nevertheless, I think that you also need to look at the qualitative elements, which are very, very important. And the qualitative elements are those in terms of governmental policy, incentives, all things we have been discussing right now, cooperation between stakeholders, as we mentioned. And there is that sort of very nice dictum in the novel called The Leopard. It's where it says if you really want to make things remain the same, if you want things to remain the same, you have to change everything. And, you know, people are reading that. The popular reading of that is that basically everybody's thinking about change. I mean, politicians are sort of, you know, saying they're going to change stuff, but their actually vested interest is for things to remain in their same shape, right? So it's very difficult to drive change. That's how this is read. Nevertheless, the way I would read that is that in order for us to maintain our very high prosperity levels in the modern world, our very high, very good quality of life, we need to change. We need to keep changing. We need to adapt to the circumstances. And that's something very, very difficult, and that's something that attaches to what I was saying about the qualitative elements of growth. People need to be happy, and they're not going to be happy only by providing them good figures, or only by looking at the bigger picture. There's a smaller picture that you need to focus on as well.
Healthier, happier, readier to make synergies, some of the takeaways. In what will be 1 minute that you will share, are you optimistic, based on the exchange we had on this panel, that starting from Greece, we can begin making changes both in the culture of synergetic entrepreneurship and investments, but also in the field of innovations, which is a lot more challenging when you don't have the fuel? 30 seconds each. Kavita, I don't know if you want to start.
Happy to. I would say yes. I am very optimistic. I think that we in this room just coming together is a great sign that we are ready to lean in and make Greece the innovation hub of Europe. And I think that should be our vision and our goal.
Let that mark the beginning of an era of cooperation between us two. And Orestes, your last remark on this?
Well, I'm not an optimist as a person, nevertheless.
We know that.
I'm not, I keep saying that. But anyways, you got to be optimistic about the Greek economy. And if you look at what Roche is doing as a company, or what other multinationals that are investing in the country, they're hiring people, they're really expanding their activities in the country. And if you see the number of transactions that are taking place with foreign investors right now, as opposed to like 5 years ago, for example, you got to be optimistic. It's obvious that there is something going on in the country. There is is that sort of broader understanding. People are working together with the government is working together with the foreign investors to create a better future for the country. So I'm
And with that,
optimistic
through
about that.
Orestes, as a maestro of foreign investment, make sure they create added value for Greek entrepreneurship too. I will pass it to Vasilis Amourkas, who will coordinate the next panel. Thank you so much, Kavita. Thank you so much, Orestes.
Thank you.
Thank you.